And I do need to make a correction here. 2 streams ago, we were talking about centrifugal discharge superheat. One of the things I had talked about was how the discharge superheat will fluctuate based off of the load on the chiller. I am very used to working on variable speed machines, and so when I think through stuff at this point, I'm thinking through it from a variable speed capacity. So the discharge superheat on a variable speed will fluctuate and reduce and raise and such, like I described previously, where it changes with the load, and we can reduce discharge superheat with load. And there are some circumstances, though, that with a full load at peak, we'll see that discharge superheat kind of come down some, just because of how the superheat, if I'm cautious to say that, coming off the evaporator, because we do have some level of superheat. Like, it's not literally no superheat. It's just like it's only 1 or 2 degrees. So it's so low that it's not really measurable accurately with our standard equipment. With a variable speed, you will see more of that discharge superheat fluctuations. And just to clarify, discharge superheat is your discharge temperature from your condenser saturation temperature. The difference between those is your discharge superheat coming off of your centrifugal, and that is the primary way that we will judge a centrifugal's, say, superheat performance. We won't base it off of suction superheat most of the time. There are some exceptions. Most of the time, we're going to base it off of the discharge superheat specifically. At most machines will run 15 to 25 degrees, 30 degrees of discharge superheat, depending on the load conditions. Some of them will get as low as 10 degrees, and it still be considered perfectly normal. Now, the correction I need to make, that changes with a constant speed machine. And this was not something I've had previously connected the dots on. So there were a handful of guys in the community that reached out. We had some discussions around this. They also shared some material. I appreciate the feedback. Definitely not perfect, and so it helps me better present this information. So let me explain constant speed discharge superheat. With constant speed, that motor doesn't change. That's the whole point behind the constant speed. But there's still the fact that that impeller is spinning. We have a specific amount of heat from friction constantly being generated. Because we can't slow the compressor down, we can't reduce the amount of heat that the impeller is generating just from rotation on its own. So what ends up happening is, as we unload the machine and we move less refrigerant into the impeller, because keep in mind, these are suction cooled compressors. There are some that use some liquid injection, but for the most part, majority of these are going to be suction cooled. Of course, then we get into turbo core, and I could get off on a tangent there. Either way, the compressor itself, the impellers, are cooled by the suction gas. As we unload and we move less suction gas through the impeller, we're not able to cool that impeller as much, which raises the discharge superheat that we have to have, because that each molecule of refrigerant has to take in more of that heat in order to properly keep the compressor from overheating. Less refrigerant means it has a harder time cooling the impeller that's running at a single speed. The discharge superheat will rise and increase in that scenario. So with less load on the compressor, higher discharge superheat. As the compressor loads up, and all else being considered proper, your flows are good, your refrigerant charge is good, your set points are good, all of that being correct, you will actually see your discharge superheat lower as the compressor loads up, because we're feeding more total volume into the compressor. That is a very clear distinction between what you might experience with a variable speed and what you'll see with a constant speed. So with a constant speed, seeing a high discharge superheat at low load conditions is actually normal. But you should see that discharge superheat begin to come down as the load increases. That is a correction. That is something that, when I explained it previously, the way I approached it applied for variable speed machines. And that was the mindset I had when I was presenting the information, but I did not take into account, nor did I fully grasp the a constant speed machine and how it doesn't follow the same discharge superheat curve that a variable speed does. And those it is because of how much refrigerant we are moving through there at a specific speed. So because the compressor cannot slow down, we're still generating just as much heat from operation, but we're not giving it as much cooling through the suction gas. If you're not already in Chiller Academy, I'd really encourage you to go check it out. Just think about it, right? This is what I do full time. I've committed. I've stepped out of the field, committed my career to this going forward. This is what I've always wanted to do, and to be able to educate, help others, and grow, and help this industry take steps forward. So chilleracademy.com. Like I'd love to be able to work with you over there. We've got a community page. All the lessons have a comment section. That's what I spend a lot of my day doing. If I'm not working on the lesson material itself, then I am in the comments and I'm trying to respond to those as fast as I can, in addition to helping you through email and otherwise. So love to be able to work with you. For all of those that are in the academy, y'all are doing some great work out there. Keep it up. I really appreciate the support and the feedback that you've given.